Hello out there, everybody. Manny here at Area 503. And I hope you all have been well since our last video. You all know that I'm a huge fan of space exploration. And today I just want to talk to you all a little bit about space again. But this time I want to talk to you about what's going on in lower Earth orbit. We all know about Starlink satellites. Yeesh, those pesky things are in low Earth orbit. And there's also another 2,200 or so low Earth orbit satellites, half of which belong to the United States of America. And of course we've got the International Space Station, which is up there in low Earth orbit as well. And that's where we're headed to today, so hang on. So here we are at the International Space Station, and recently the Russian Nauka module was delivered to the station, and that is where we begin our story today. The Russian Nauka module was designed to be a multi-purpose laboratory module upgrade, or a MLMU, and it was the first major upgrade of the ISS in over 20 years. So this thing should have been a point of pride for Roscosmos, the Russian space agency. But it actually wasn't. It was actually kind of a black eye for them instead. Let me tell you why. First, the initial stages for the Nauka module originally began back in the mid-90s, and it was scheduled for a launch in 2007. However, multiple design changes requiring lengthy rebuilds and overhauls would set the project back repeatedly. Between 2007 and 2013, the Nauka module launch was officially delayed 5 times, and on that final failure, it was the propulsion system that failed. And that would require repairs of an additional 12 to 18 months, pushing the launch date back to 2015. But Nauka wasn't out of the woods yet, because in 2015, contaminated propellant tanks forced the project to be delayed again until 2020. And then in 2020, it got delayed again another 3 months to allow for the replacement of fuel tanks as a precautionary measure. Now this next part is humorously ironic if you ask me. You see, the Nauka module had already been shipped to the launch location in Kazakhstan long ago. However, the project had been delayed so many times and sat idle in Kazakhstan so long that the warranty on the whole module had expired, and so the whole thing required testing on machinery that only existed in Moscow. So the whole module had to be packed up, shipped to Moscow, tested, and then shipped back to Kazakhstan. Oh my. At this point, it was March of 2020, and the global pandemic pushed the launch of the Nauka module back to June 2021, a full 14 years after its original launch date. Wow. So you can understand why I said earlier that this whole project was a black eye for Roscosmos, because it was just a series of endless delays and setbacks, and was most likely embarrassing for the Russian space agency. And so finally, on July 21st, 2021, the Nauka module was finally launched to space.
A multi-purpose laboratory module, 43 feet long, 22.5 tons of mass, flying over southern Russia.
But the black eyes didn't end there. You see, after the launch of the module, during its 2-day transit to the ISS, there were all sorts of problems, from a drop in telemetry to issues with the propulsion systems and failure in the automatic docking process, forcing the cosmonauts to intervene and causing a further delay in the module's arrival to the ISS.
Oleg. Let's switch to the Toro mode. Copy. We are sending PU BPS initial. Stand by, Oleg.
And for the final few meters, Oleg Novitsky taking over manual control of the flying of Nauka.
Initial command. Range is about 10 meters. Copy. Range rate is minus 0.08. The crosshairs are aligned. Range is 6 meters.
6 meters now. Nowitzki flying the Nauka multi-purpose laboratory module in for its docking.
Range is 5 meters. The target is in the center, and the crosshairs are aligned, and the range rate is minus 0.08. We copy. Range is 4. And the misalignment is unintelligible. We copy.
Standing by for contact and capture.
We are losing the image. The range is 3 meters. Copy. Range rate is minus 0.1. The target is in the center. The crosshairs are aligned. Copy. Range is 0.1. We're standing by for contact. And once you get the contact and please deactivate. Once you confirm contact, please deactivate PUBPS. Copy.
Contact and capture. Docking confirmed at 8:29 a.m. Central Time. Nauka has been a long time coming, but has now pulled into port at the International Space Station.
Congratulations. That was not an easy docking. We have deactivated the manual control mode. Copy. Oleg. Retract.
Docking occurring again at 8:29 a.m. Central Time, 9:29 a.m. Eastern Time, as the International Space Station and Nauka flew 260 miles over the border between Mongolia and China.
So it seems clear to me that this mission was just filled with problems. So you have to think that the cosmonauts were extremely relieved when they finally docked with the ISS. But this is where things get pretty interesting. You see, about 3 hours after docking to the International Space Station, the crew was performing leak checks before opening the hatch to the module. At this point, for some reason, the maneuvering thrusters on the Nauka module began firing, causing the ISS to spin and lose its orientation to the planet.
Over the course of the next 3 hours after docking, Russian cosmonauts Oleg Nowitzki and Pyotr Dubrov of the Expedition 65 crew were conducting routine leak checks of the interface between the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module and the International Space Station, had opened the hatch on the Zvezda service module side of the docking interface, and Russian flight controllers, along with the two cosmonauts, were in the process of integrating other commanding activities between the newly arrived MLM, or the Nauka, and the Zvezda service module. At 11:45 a.m. Central Time, the Nauka multipurpose laboratory module's thrusters began to fire inadvertently and unexpectedly.
This caused a temporary loss of communications between the ISS and NASA, and it rotated solar panels away from the sun, causing them to absorb minimal or no energy.
And that resulted in the International Space Station going about 45 degrees out of attitude. The crew was never in any danger. The flight control team here in Houston immediately acknowledged the situation. The crew began to work recovery operations on board to regain attitude.
Imagine that. Here you are, chilling on the ISS, and this problematic new module finally arrives and attaches itself to the station. Woohoo, that should be a cause for celebration. But then, all of a sudden, boom, this thing begins firing its thrusters, pushing the ISS out of position. Are you kidding me? How does something like this even happen? Well, according to Roscosmos, it was a software glitch. Okay. Apparently there was a direct command from the module to fire the thrusters for some reason, and there was software in place that should have prevented the module's thrusters from firing, but it glitched and failed apparently.
We have deactivated the manual control mode. Copy.
So the Nauka module's thrusters began firing and wouldn't stop for a full 45 minutes until they ran out of fuel. The whole time, astronauts on board the ISS and scientists on the ground at NASA were all trying to come up with ways to try to counter the thrust from the module, and they fired off the station's other thrusters to try to stop the station from spinning out of control.
The ISS Progress 78 cargo ship that is docked to the Poisk module on the zenith side of the International Space Station's Russian segment was brought into play by the Russian flight control team, who responded very quickly. The Progress thrusters fired, and attitude has now been regained. Initially, the Zvezda service module picked up on the fact that we were headed out of attitude control and began to counterbalance the thruster firings of Nauka to begin the process of regaining attitude control. That then was handed over to the ISS Progress 78 cargo ship that took over the job of regaining attitude control. There's no explanation at this point as to what precipitated the inadvertent thruster firings on the multipurpose laboratory module, but the Russian flight control team has indicated that when we come back over Russian ground stations about 30 minutes from now, they should be able to send commanding to the multipurpose laboratory module to disable those thrusters on the MLM and prevent any reoccurrence of inadvertent thruster firings.
After a nerve-wracking 45 minutes, the thrusters on the Nauka finally ran out of fuel, so Mission Control Moscow was able to signal the Nauka computer that it was no longer in flight mode and was instead in a docked to the ISS mode. And so the Nauka turned over control of its systems to the ISS computer, and to the great relief of everyone involved, this ended the saga of the cursed flight of the Nauka module. And thank God, because what a debacle this whole thing had become. And it should be a huge embarrassment to Roscosmos. That is, if it was simply a software glitch as they profess it to be.
We have deactivated the manual control mode. Copy.
But was it really a software glitch that caused the Nauka module thrusters to fire after it attached itself to the station? I find that explanation extremely suspect. Let me tell you why. First, the software used to run these systems is thoroughly tested on the ground by running simulations, well before it's ever tested in practical experiments. Once real-world experiments are taking place, this software is constantly being updated, verified, and refined after each test by using data from that individual mission. And again, let me stress that this software only has one purpose: to verify what flight mode the module is in before activating manual commands that might endanger the unit. It's a safety protocol. That's what it's designed to do, and that's all it's designed to do. There is simply no way for it to fail on its own without the flight controllers being aware of it. But this alleged failure alone was not enough to fire the thrusters on the Nauka module. The software would have had to have failed at the same exact time as one of the cosmonauts entered a manual command to fire the module's thrusters. You see what I mean? The likelihood of the software failing in the first place is extremely low, and when you add in the fact that the software would have had to fail at the same exact time as the cosmonauts' accidental discharge of the thrusters, the probability of that being the truth diminishes to almost nothing. So yeah, I don't buy the software glitch explanation here. So what do I think happened? Well, let me give you a little bit more information, and then I'll tell you. You see, I reported not too long ago that Russia had announced its plans to withdraw from the International Space Station. Instead, Russia is going to partner with China, who is building its own space station for research.
Well, Russia and China have agreed on Tuesday to build a lunar space station as Moscow seeks to modernize its extraterrestrial might and catch up with the United States in the space race. Russia, which sent the first man into space, Yuri Gagarin, during the Soviet Union, has been lagging behind Washington and Beijing in the exploration of the moon and other planets. Russia's space agency, Roscosmos, said in a statement that a memorandum was signed by its head, Dmitry Rogozin, and Zhang Kejian of China's National Space Administration.
Because of this development, I was a little bit surprised when I learned that the Nauka module was still being launched and attached to the ISS. You see, I figured that Russia would cancel any future missions that it had planned after it had announced its withdrawal from the program. But I guess they had agreements to deliver the module anyhow, regardless of future participation in the ISS, so they had to deliver the Nauka to make good on these agreements. But what if somebody found a way to turn this liability into an opportunity? What if someone thought that this was too good of an opportunity to pass up? What if maybe, just maybe, this was no accident? What if this was done intentionally as a way to attempt to damage the ISS on the way out? What if this was an act of intentional sabotage? I mean, it certainly looks like that could be the case based on all the evidence that we have. So it could be entirely possible that this was just Russia's attempt to flip the rest of us the political bird on the way out of the ISS program. And this certainly wouldn't be the first time that there was suspected sabotage aboard the ISS. Back in 2018, it was announced that a pressure leak was the result of a small circular hole that appeared to have been drilled through the wall of the Soyuz MS-09 transport vehicle that was docked to the station. At that time, there was extreme speculation about the nature of the hole and who had drilled it, but no definitive answer was ever provided to the public about the exact cause of the apparent sabotage on the spacecraft. Now here we are 3 years later, and another piece of Russian equipment has threatened the safety of the ISS and all of those on board. If this was an intentional act of sabotage with a political agenda, it would truly be one of the most devious and self-centered acts that a nation could take. The International Space Station should be considered a world wonder. Beyond that, the experiments that have taken place on the station will allow humanity to one day travel to other planets and possibly to other stars. The International Space Station is a beacon of what human beings can achieve when we work cooperatively for a common goal. It's a shining example of one world working together. And to me, the ISS represents one world with one people. And for any one nation to threaten all of that for petty political purposes is just downright despicable. And if it's proven that this was intentional, I will be severely upset if there are not serious repercussions for those involved. But I guess that's up to the politicians. So, yeah. Anyhow, that's the story of the Nauka module and its insane journey from the drawing board to the International Space Station. And what a crazy story, right? This project had better be worth it to the ISS and to everyone else. What do you guys think? Do you think the Nauka module firing its thrusters was a software glitch? Do you think that it was intentionally caused? Do you think that the Whopper is better than the Big Mac? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's get a conversation going and see if we can all figure this out together. What do you say? Well guys, for now, that's all I got on the Nauka module and the ISS. I'll catch y'all later.
As always, this has been Manny at Area 503. And I wish you all the best until we meet again. And I am out of here to continue my search for universal truth.